Mr. Chairman, I've got one. Commissioner Holbert, I might suggest, since the study is the big issue, that we exclude those 5 counties from your motion, if you would entertain that.
I'm gonna, if you'll second it, I'm gonna withdraw my motion.
Well, I don't have any choice, do I?
And I want to say this, and I was on the last commission, and on this commission when we voted. And if I voted for something and said I would give it 2 years, and that's what I want to do. I'm not going to say I remember that part of the wording, but I did hear Commissioner Stroud's question a while ago. A year from now, are you going to come back and ask us not to do this again? And you know, you almost seem like you answered that question is, well, we really need 3 to 5 years.
It's just ideal.
So I just want to be clear on that. Is there going to be any answers next year?
From the research study?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Like my slide said, we'll know in 2021.
Okay.
That's when we'll know. And like I said, you know, 3 to 5 years is ideal, but 2 years was the understanding when it was made. And so if you want to raise the daily bag limit again, I'll give you this presentation again, but I'll leave out the research part.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Commissioner Cox?
I have an amendment to Proclamation 1703.
Hey, Bill, so we have, so so the original amendment has been retracted, so Commissioner Cox.
My amendment is to close fall hunting season for hens statewide. I don't see how we can, as the report shows and the concern from Joy about the population, and we don't know, and you know, I understand recruitment, but you know, we're killing the hens, and over a period of 5 years, one hen might produce, offspring might produce 500, 600, 700 turkeys at a recruitment rate of 3 surviving chicks, poults a year. So if you do the math, and we killed 1,000 this year, we could have taken 10,000 turkeys over 5 or 6 years out of the population. So I don't know how we challenge gobbler take as a huge concern, but yet we still kill hens in the fall. So I'm concerned about her presentation, that if we don't know, then we need to err on the side of caution and stop shooting the hens in the fall.
So we have an amendment to close the fall season for hens statewide. Is there a second? Have a second. Any discussion on that from the committee? Clarification?
This won't affect the study because it's already closed in those counties, correct?
That's correct.
No, that's not correct. There's 5 counties involved in that study. 3 of them are the ones with the decreasing harvest trend. 2 of them are counties with an increasing harvest trend, and fall season is open in those counties. So that's a regulation change.
Okay, but
that will affect the study.
But you acknowledge that those 3 counties have an increase this year, substantial harvest.
I acknowledge that,
Okay.
yes, they harvested more this year than what were harvested last year.
So do we have a second? So we have a second. I'll comment first. What we're trying to learn is our behavior affecting the turkey population? If we change our behavior, then it affects the study. So we've reached a carrying capacity as it shows here, and if we change what we're doing, your data changes. Any other comments from the committee? Just Commissioner
Yeah,
Stroud?
I think the research would be a waste of time if we keep changing this stuff.
I agree.
And and we don't, my ignorance, but it seems to me that, you know, every time we make a change, it's gonna skew whatever you're doing, right? So I'm not saying that we shouldn't change what we're talking about, but I'm saying that let's wait a year, leave stuff alone, see what the 2 years brings us. If it gives us any answers or not, you know, we can look at it then. But we're not giving this research any, we're not giving it a chance. And with the money being spent, and I just think it's, in my opinion, I think we need that 1 year, that period. And I was looking at the other way of this whole thing until you said that. And it just seems to me that it's a waste of time. This year is wasted if we go do something that, you know, that we need to wait 2 years to look at.
I think another way to look at it is we're not necessarily studying how bad a shape our turkey population is in, because you can look at the graph, it's not in bad shape. We're showing, possibly, depending on what the study shows, it might show how great we're managing our turkey population. Let's just continue with what we're doing. Everything's great. I don't feel we have a disaster. The resource is not in trouble. Obviously, from the graph, we're improving this year. So it's sort of like we have a new product. We're trying to test how great it is. We're showing what a great product we have here. What we're doing is great, or maybe tweak it to make it better. So I don't know that we're studying and need to make big changes because we're in big trouble. Any other comments from the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I achieved my goal in getting that, so I'll withdraw my motion, but I don't know how you can, I don't know how, for discussion, I don't know how we can use the superlatives of the population might be at a critical mass and we might be at our carrying capacity when clearly we're not. But on the other side, say, well, it's okay, we can still keep killing hens. I don't, those two things are polar opposites. So it's unfair to present data that says one thing, but when you talk about the other, it's okay. But I withdraw my motion.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the committee? Director Carter?
Thank you, Chairman Cook. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. A lot of them have already been made, so I won't go into a lot of the details, but to Commissioner Holbert's question, for sure, if you ask us next year, are we going to oppose any kind of change? We wouldn't oppose it, but, you know, we would love to go 5 straight years. I mean, that would be ideal. Then we would have no changes that would influence the study one way or the other than those things that are normal every year, weather and you know, fires, whatever it happens to be. There's always going to be some influence, but the longer a study goes without any change, the better your interpretation is at the end. So we wanted at least 2 years of baseline data so we could at least get some idea of what's going on. 3 is way better. Anything over 3 is certainly ice cream in terms of trying to make that study, the significance of the study and our confidence limits go up. So I didn't want to mislead you. If you ask us, we go, oh no, we'd like to keep it the same for at least for 3 years, but we wouldn't come back next year and say no. The other thing on carrying capacity and hens and all of that's relevant to what we're talking about. But at the same time, anytime you have a major stocking event, it doesn't matter what the animal is. Anytime you have a major stocking event, you're going to ratchet your numbers up, and you're going to reach a plateau to at some point when you quit stocking, those numbers are going to fall. That's just what stocking curves do. So we know that's going to happen. We may be at carrying capacity. We don't really know, but we do know that habitat is one of the major drivers. And even though there may be excess of hens in one area, some may be able to take it, maybe they're not. We'll hope to find out. But anyway, if the nesting habitat, as Joy said, is out there, it really doesn't matter how many hens you have. And I don't mean we need to go keep taking an overabundance of hens. I'm just saying there's so many factors involved in the population levels and all the influences that go forward on those. We just really would like to have at least 2 years. And next year, if you decide you want to change, we could live with that. We'd love to have 3, but we could live with 2. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Carter. I think that completes all our presentations, but the Wildlife Committee does have some questions, like some discussion on the elk program. I'd like to call on Commissioner Cox and Commissioner Baker to discuss that.
You wanna start, you want?
Sorry for what? I wasn't paying attention. Oh, they gonna make a presentation about elk?
Chairman?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot that. Any public comments on the turkey issue? Okay, thank you.
If it pleases you, Mark Goodland would like to step up now to address the elk and to kind of wrap up the proclamation.
I'm sorry, Mark, were you planning on presenting that? That's great, thank you, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that.
Failed to
Thank,
point that out.
I'd like to call him Mark Goodland.
Just wanted to clarify that the agency did not come forth with any elk recommendations. You may know we are in the process of we're actively working on our elk strategic plan. Well, our crew's been active in collaring more elk, trying to get better numbers on our population. As you know, we've had some concern. We're experiencing what we estimate is an increase of about 9% a year, but the population's at a lower level than what it was anticipated when the elk were initially restored. And so with those factors, we're trying to, take some caution in how many bulls are harvested. And of course, we added 5 permits last year. Also, in developing the strategic plan, we had 2 public scoping meetings last week, one in La Follette, one in the Huntsville area, where we were obtaining comments from the public. Again, we are actively working towards trying to get the best handle we can, determine what's a good harvestable surplus number. We like to provide hunter opportunity where we can without damaging the resource, but just wanted to give you that background on why we're coming forth yet with no elk recommendations this year.
Thank you, Mark.
What were the comments at the public meeting last week that we didn't know anything about before, until now?
If you don't mind, I was not at the meeting, but I'll call on John Mike or Brad Miller. Brad Miller's our elk program leader.
So, at the public meetings, we had 2, one in Campbell County and one in Scott County, and comments were fairly similar between the 2, but the long and short of it is we broke folks up into breakout tables. Each table had a theme. One table would be recreation, another would be population, and so on. We had a lot of different comments. There's probably 150 or more comments on the wide variety of topics that we threw out. I can read you just a few if you'd like, or so under the recreation table, we had some suggestions to develop an elk heritage day to promote elk in the state, to potentially put up a live cam at the elk tower. Under the population table, we saw requests to expand the restoration zone. We had requests to increase population within the zone. We had requests not to introduce more elk. Within the conflicts table, we had folks note that elk were damaging crops and fields. They suggested dart and remove rather than use depredation permits. They asked for transferable permits. They asked for landowner permits, and they asked for the creation of a privately funded damage fund that could compensate landowners. Under the habitat table, they suggested increasing fall, winter, and spring food plots. They said fire is the future for elk management. They suggested larger openings, and they asked if we could explore cost-sharing hay and crops, like some fish and wildlife places do. On the education and special issues table, the last one, they asked for more outreach on private land education and basically go and talk elk with private landowners. They asked if we could promote more elk education in the schools, have more public meetings, and create an elk blog, which would keep folks informed. So that's just some of the highlights. Again, there were many, many comments.
Any questions for Brad?
How many, I got a question, refresh my memory. We had 3,500 acres burned this past year up there, is that correct?
Are you referring to the NIFWIF grant that I spoke about last time?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was over a 2-year period. It was slightly over 3,000 acres spread on, a couple of different sites.
And how many more openings in food plots do we have out now than what we had before?
New food plots within the last 12 months, say?
Yes, yes, sir. How many are we planting this year compared to, or how many do we have total acreage? How much have we increased? I know that was one of your big deals, one thing we were talking about, increasing more habitat, more
Sure.
food.
Right. So we have a total of about 750 acres or so, and we don't plant all 750 annually. We have essentially a 2 or 3 year rotation, so we average planting about 200 acres per year.
I just had a comment or two. We, in our meeting here a couple of months ago, we talked about some of the issues, the depredation and some of those things. And you know, one or two of the things that I'd like to see discussed or changed. I'd like to make sure that in their effort to get things planted and try to work between rains or work between whatever their time schedule is, that the guys in the hunt areas don't try to maintain or disc or do anything to their food plots up there until the hunts are over. I mean, that obviously attracts elk, and it obviously makes it better for the hunters to have more success. And I think it's pretty tough when they don't consider that when they have to do their timeliness or whatever they're planning. And the other thing is we have an auction item for a permit that we auctioned and got $9,000 for it last year. And I'm not sure how long that popularity is going to be there to make that money for the elk if we don't try to do a little more for that particular person that invests his money in the program. And I'd like to see that tag move to a hunt, and maybe the youth tag also in the same time, where it's a week before these two scheduled hunts, and they can hunt anywhere in any of the areas. And it just seems to me like when you've got people from all over the nation bidding on this tag, that there ought to be something a little special for it. And if there's not, then that's going to decrease in popularity, because it's not going to take too many years of that type of fellow hunting in an area where there are no elk to not go, that money's going to be gone.
So we currently have 7 elk zones, and we rest a couple of them. That's kind of been the MO for the past couple of years. Each couple of zones will be rested for a couple of years. So you're suggesting that the auction tag buyer have their own 5 days or whatever outside of the other hunters, and they could hunt all 5 or 7 zones? Is that?
I think they can hunt anywhere up there in the Tacker or Royal Blue or wherever they want to hunt. And I think the youth hunt perhaps ought to be the same way. Have the kid up there, instead of having him 2 days, he gets 5 days. It makes it special for the both of them. And I don't agree with, by the way, with resting the areas assumes that the elk don't migrate across the mountains. Resting the areas means that there are good areas to hunt there, and it infers to me that we're trying to not let the hunters access there because it's good habitat to kill an elk. So I would like to open all the areas to hunting, and that's like the best duck blind. We don't rest a really good duck blind because we're killing too many ducks. So I think with the number of elk up there, I consider or think we've got more, but you've thrown out the number of 400, or I think there's more like 6. But if we have 10 or 15 permits, and I think the percentage of harvest is probably going to be less than 50%. We had more depredation permits and killed 5 or 6 cows last year than that. So I think giving the hunters opportunity to take bulls, which by the way are not the ones that have the babies, is not going to hurt the population. I mean, we kill more the percentage of turkeys and deer than we do that percentage to elk. So I don't really think that's not a population issue at all.
Well, with that, I'd like to make a amendment to 1703 to where we have 7 drawn gun tags, 7 archery tags, 1 auction tag, and 1 youth tag for a total of 16 tags, and make the season start on Saturday and run through the following Friday. So we have a weekend to hunt versus being a Monday through a Friday hunt only. That'd be my motion. It'll be a 7-day hunt, a Saturday through the following Friday.
Just to clarify that, that doesn't separate the auction hunter and the youth hunter like I
No,
talked about? And that,
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying you didn't.
I'm glad to do
Okay.
that. I'd say that we start, do you want to start let's go back to the calendar there.
Seems like maybe, should we do, at least it seemed like 2 different issues, are they?
No, we can put them all together, that's fine. You have the archery season being we could make the archery season the first Saturday in October through that Friday, and let the youth hunt and the special auction tag be the second Saturday, and then the gun hunt be the third Saturday.
Commissioner Baker, let me make a suggestion.
Okay?
Maybe we follow up and maybe we vote on the number of tags and how we want to separate them, and allow the agency overnight to come back with the calendar date so they can kind of think about it instead of us trying to do it here.
Okay.
If that's all right with you, I think
That's
it'd be
fine with me,
better
sir.
for them to analyze it, kind of what we're asking for.
Yeah, well, to clarify my motion then, I'll make a motion that we have 7 gun tags, regular gun tags, 7 regular archery tags, 1 auction tag, and 1 youth tag for a total of 16 tags. And I'd like to see a 7-day season starting on a Saturday instead of the current 5-day season we have.
Do we have a second?
And separate the youth and the auction tags.
Yeah, we'll separate the youth and the auction.
I'll second that.
So, wait a second. Before we second it, what did you add, Commissioner Cox, to the?
We're gonna separate the auction and the youth tag to be at a separate time between the archery and the gun hunt. We'll let the agency come back with dates on that tomorrow.
Okay. So any discussion amongst the committee? Chairman Woodson?
Just wondering, because it's been a while since the last meeting can the agency talk through what the potential implications of the proposal would be and how this would adjust current policy? Any response from the agency?
For clarification, with the youth hunt, that would be a 7-day hunt, or currently it's 2 days, a Saturday, Sunday? So my response would be, Commissioner Cox is right that survival of adult females is what drives populations. You can harvest bulls. There's potential for sex ratios to be skewed, and there's potential to have adult males be removed at a greater proportion from the population. But I can't get up here and say that will happen or that won't happen. Kind of what Joy was saying earlier, we need a little better information as far as being able to model that kind of thing, information that we don't have. In regards to hunting, the depredation hunts or depredation tags and those animals, those were on private land. And with these potential 16 tags, would those be for private, for public, or either or? Sure, I support that. You know, what we found last year, which again was just 1 year, is that many of the landowners were reluctant to let somebody they didn't know come hunt. That may change, you know, I don't know. My goal for the strategic elk plan was to try to work through some of this and try to address some of those conflicts that private landowners were having with elk. And maybe an approach like this, or maybe, as I've mentioned before, having landowner tags that are guaranteed tag that a landowner can either use themselves or auction with an overall quota to prevent over-harvest.
You're gonna do that, I'm gonna go buy some property.
That has been discussed, but again, we're still trying to work through our strategic plan.
We'll increase values of property in a hurry.
So, any discussion from the committee? Any discussion from the public? Mike Butler?
I just want to, I'm Mike Butler with the Tennessee Wildlife Federation. We would want to go on the record as having concern about the number of tags. Typically, in every other season that y'all propose, the biologists come and say, we think this is what the population can handle. We obviously are dealing in a situation where we don't have perfect information. That's always the case. In that sense, we can see the need to increase tags, potentially to allay some of the private lands issues that are going on. So we're not opposed necessarily to having a discussion about increasing those tags, but how we go about it in the process is important. I don't know if, and the other concern that I would just say is this, is that we just had 2 public elk meetings, the first in a decade, just last week. And this proposal coming to the floor, we could have gotten information on that type of thing at those meetings had we known.
We talked about it at the last meeting.
I'll just say this, the public does not know. They don't know. And I don't know, I can't sit here and tell you what. I know the first time when we proposed the hunt and presented the resolution to start the hunt, we got big pushback from the Safari Club Chattanooga chapter initially until we had a chance to sit down and have a conversation in which we all came together and supported that thing. Again, we're not out of hand opposed to increasing tags, but how we do it and how many are done, we would prefer to hear a recommendation, and we know the agency staff are talking about strategies around that in the elk planning process that they're trying to get knocked out by fall. So that would be the only thing we'd ask y'all to consider as you consider the decision. Lots of moving parts.
I considered that. Thank you very much, Mike.
Brad, when would you be prepared to make give us some information on what seems to be the appropriate harvest limit?
We got to study it for 5 years and we'll get back to you.
Well, at least 3, at least 3.
As Mr. Butler said, you know, again, my preference would be to work through the strategic planning process, work with landowners, work with partners, and develop a comprehensive elk management plan. You know, we still don't necessarily have a statewide goal of where we want elk and how many elk we want. And without some of those basic goals, you know, I'm not sure what's the correct approach. Now, we could, yes, sir.
Do we have an owner tell us a week or so ago that if we didn't get rid of the elk, they were gonna take care of it themselves? And have we not killed a whole bunch of depredation females in the last year? If we're gonna kill elk, let's give the opportunity to the men and women who buy a license in this state to fund this elk program, to fund your job and most of the people's jobs in this room. Let's give them an opportunity. And I think if we're talking about adding bow hunting tags, which is a really low harvest rate to begin with. We're talking about adding a couple more gun tags to it, which is, yeah, it's got a lot higher rate, but still not 100%. So overall impact to the resource is very minimal.
So again, my concern would be impact to the public lands. You know, we have a $670,000 elk restoration zone. Of that, about $200,000 acre, about 200,000 acres that's public land. My concern would be that if we do these 16 tags, that many of those would hunt on public land, that either A, they would not be able to afford what a private landowner might be interested in charging, or B, that private landowners would not be interested in having people come hunt their property, which is what we hear, and many of the reasons why we didn't have more hunters on private land last fall. You know, my preference is, I'm not opposed to adding the weekends. We can do that. If we wanted to increase the number of archery tags, I don't think that would affect the resource much. You know, archery harvest success rates are not very high. I mean, we had a lot of attempts last fall. We had 4 bulls missed. Well, 1 was hit and unrecovered. But, you know, additional auction tag and a couple more gun tags would probably mean a couple more bulls harvested on public land, likely.
How many we killed last year?
Killed 3 last year.
How many depredation permits did we kill?
Killed 8 animals on private land.
Brad, is there a number that is there a number you'd be more comfortable with in the, let's say, if you say you're comfortable with increasing the archery tags, so are you good with 7 total archery tags?
I mean, I think so. Yes, sir.
And how many gun tags are you comfortable with?
Again, this is your all's decision. Our recommendation was no change. I don't want to get up here and negotiate this out. I mean,
I'm just asking what, yeah.
again, I would recommend no change to gun tags.
Okay, thank you.